The topic of my presentation is evolution revolution. It's been amazing to me. The June issue of The Economist posed the question on its cover, can India fly? And the question related directly to the amazing growth that's going on in India and the great business success. Along with this growth is coming the development, sort of the unplanned development, of new office buildings, IT parks, and BPOs, both in Bangalore and throughout the country. The new Indian offices are going to compete with well-designed offices throughout the world. In the West, particularly in Europe and the United States, offices have matured over the last 50 years to a point where they're state-of-the-art, ergonomically very sound, very supportive of the individuals that work in them. But this didn't happen overnight. It happened in New York. Just as the outside was very regimented, very organized in its grid, so was the inside. Office interiors at this point were very hierarchical. Typically on the floor, cellular offices would line the window walls, and internally, neat rows of desks would infill the inboard. Throughout the 1950s, this was the role model for modern offices throughout the United States. And this building and the office that you see in this image were really replicated in cities across the country. In the 1960s, there became a boom in office workers, both in Europe and the States. Along with that came innovations in office equipment and office furniture. Xerox introduced the first mass-produced office copier in the 60s, and Herman Miller, a large furniture manufacturer in the States, introduced the first open-plan furniture system. It was called Action Office, and it was an enormous success. Since its introduction, Herman Miller has sold almost $8 billion worth of Action Office worldwide. It has now become the paradigm. When we think of open office planning, we think of panel system furniture, as we see here today. It is the standard worldwide. In the 1970s, companies like Sears Roebuck, who was the world's largest retailer at that time, moved into a new signature tower in Chicago. It was designed by Skidmore, Owens & Merrill, and it was the world's tallest building. The strategy by Sears was similar to the strategy of all corporations at that time, and that was proximity equals efficiency. Put all of your executive staff in one building under one roof, surround them by your consultants and your suppliers. This was the role model at the time. Into the 80s, things were beginning to change. Certainly technology was changing. Computers were getting into everybody's hands and were prevalent in offices everywhere. In the same year that Microsoft introduced Windows software and revolutionized the way that we use computers, Norman Foster completed the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank headquarters in Hong Kong. Its high-tech image was reflected in the interiors, where the open-plan systems furniture took on a very hard edge, industrial materials, exposed connections, and a high-tech aesthetic. Late in the 80s, technology and communications had progressed to such a point that corporations were able to cut their umbilical cords. They were able to move out of downtown urban locations, which had held them to the centers of major cities. They were able to move to the suburbs where real estate was cheaper and they could expand into low-rise campuses. IBM built outside of Dallas a campus called Solana, which is a benchmark campus even to today. It was built on 850 acres, originally planned for 20,000 employees and 7 million square feet of office buildings. What makes it special, even in a benchmark project today, is the sensitivity by which this mass development was incorporated in natural parkland settings. Following hot on the heels of the flight from the city of major corporations to the suburbs into lower-rise developments, after only 20 years in their signature tower, Sears Roebuck vacated it and moved to a low-rise campus outside of Chicago. By the end of the 20th century, there were benchmark headquarters projects and office parks all over the world that were state-of-the-art. There were very humane places for the employees that worked in them. One of the finest is the headquarters for British Airways. It's a complex known as Waterside. And Niels Torp, who was the architect and designer for it, consolidated British Airways staff from 6 different locations into this one campus. It consists of 6 high-tech buildings linked with the internal, very airy Main Street. I've taken clients through this project numerous times, and every time I'm amazed by the connectivity that's happening between staff. All along this Main Street, there are cafes, there are informal touchdown spots, and it's alive with activity. Niels Torp and British Airways get a lot of credit. This is one project in which design does really affect human performance and behavior. What was going on in the West for 50 years, from the middle part of the 20th century to the beginning of the 21st, was a linked sequential evolution in the development of the workplace. What has been going on in India is a compressed 60 years, 50 or 60 years, into about 5 years, and this is revolutionary. The workplace in India is changing dramatically, and this is just the beginning. The factors that are driving workplace design today are technology, of course, sustainability, adaptability, and quality of life. Technology has allowed companies to set up camp in Bangalore to operate with their other offices around the globe seamlessly, 24 hours a day. Technology is allowing individuals and teams of people to work across the globe 24/7. Technology is freeing individuals to work at home, to work on their own schedules, to work the way that they want to work. The rising cost of energy and environmental concerns are driving green architecture around the world. In Europe and in the United States, buildings are required to meet more and more stringent requirements for energy conservation and carbon footprint reduction. What was a boutique issue only 10 years ago is now a mainstream issue for states, for companies, and for individuals like those of us in this auditorium tonight. The environmental concerns will continue to grow as energy costs continue to rise. Adaptability is critical for designers today. The change, or the pace of change, is growing ever quicker in the world. The projects we're designing will change dramatically, both in use and in demographics in the years to come. The one thing that we can be sure of is we can't see ahead and see the unforeseen. Quality of life deals with respect for the individuals, and this is really something that is sweeping across the globe. The individual is being recognized by